Okay, hello and welcome everybody today for the author webinar. Thank you for joining us. So I'm Chandni and I'm part of the learning and content management team. So joining with me from the learning and content management team are my colleagues Anita, Radhika, Sridevi, Jennifer, and yeah. So before we begin, a few housekeeping items. So firstly, please take a few moments to complete the poll you will see on the screens. And if you have a question at any time during the content of the session, please use the Q&A option to send your question directly to us. We will try to answer as many as possible today during the session in the Q&A channel. If we cannot answer all the questions, we will reply to you directly after the session, unless you post the session anonymously. We'll also cover some of the questions at the end of the session today. For the best view, you may wish to drag the central bar on your screen to the right to enlarge the screen that I'm sharing. And you may also wish to enable the live transcripts via the bar on the bottom of your screen. Finally, our session is being recorded today, and you will be sent a link when the recording is ready. So now let's take a look at our agenda for today. Okay, so we will start by giving you an overview of the author submission process in Editorial Manager. Please note that the steps may vary depending on the journal configuration and the type of article being submitted by the authors. We will also have a look at how to use the declaration tool when submitting a manuscript. Elsevier's declaration tool quickly and easily helps authors create a comprehensive statement which incorporates the ICMGE, which is nothing but the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors declaration standards. So this declaration tool will produce a statement in a Word form that can be uploaded alongside your manuscript, and it will appear in your published article. So finally, I will also provide you a brief explanation of the various editorial statuses your submission may go through in Editorial Manager. So now let's get into Editorial Manager test site and explore the author submission process. Please note that I'm going to be using our training site for the demonstration with dummy users and dummy submissions. The training site is a good replica of the live environment, but it will look slightly different to your own profile. So don't worry if you don't get to see things that you normally see when you log into your profile. So this may be due to the rights and permissions that are granted for each role that may vary journal to journal. So now let's switch over to Editorial Manager. Anita, can you confirm that you're able to see
Yes,
Editorial
Chandni.
Manager?
Yes, Chandni.
Okay.
All okay.
Okay, thank you so much for confirming. Okay, so I'm on the Editorial Manager page and I've logged in as an author here. So before submitting a manuscript, please check the journal requirements via the instructions for author links that you see on the banner image. So these instructions will contain guidelines on manuscript word counts, file requirements, and other important information for your submission. So it is important to familiarize yourself with the journal through the instructions for authors link here. So once you're ready to begin the submission process for your paper, click on the Submit New Manuscript link here. So if you have already started with submitting a paper, you will see the incomplete submissions. You might want to pick up your submission from where you left, or if you want to start a new manuscript from the scratch, click on No Start New Manuscript button here. So we are at the first step of submitting a manuscript. So please select a relevant article type from the drop-down menu. If you are submitting to a special issue, please ensure that you select the appropriate special issue article type because there might be more than one special issue that may be running in the journal at the same time. So now when you select a particular article type, at this point, the journal may request you to link to your ORCID record. So either you can do it now, or if you want to do it later in the process, the system will once again prompt authors to link to your ORCID account before you complete your submission to this journal. So once you're done with this, click on the Proceed button. So this is the second step in the submission process, the attach file step. So please attach all the files that you wish to include along with your submission in this particular step. You may either use the browse option here to access your computer's file list, or simply use the drag and drop option here to drag and drop a file from your computer to attach. Okay, so for any submission, Manuscript is going to be the mandatory. So let's start with that particular file type. So I'm just going to click on the browse option here, and I click on the Manuscript option, and I'm also going to click on the declaration statement here. So you may see that this declaration of interest is mandatory for some journals and it is optional for some. But in either events, such a statement is mandatory from an ethics perspective. So we also have a short video that is published on how to use the declaration tool in Editorial Manager, which will be posted in the chat box for you now. So I'm just going to quickly we have already uploaded the files now. So I will come back to explaining this particular file type more in detail a little later. So then comes the cover letter. So if you wish to include the cover letter along with your submission and you don't find any instructions in Guide for Authors, it is nothing but a brief letter that introduces your manuscript to a prospective editor. So in this letter, you can specify any special considerations to be given to your paper, brief background about the research or data involved, details of any previous or concurrent submissions, and so on. So now once the appropriate file types, all the mandatory file types are uploaded to the journal, the ones that are marked with the asterisk symbol resembles that they are mandatory file types. Scroll down and please ensure that the appropriate file type is selected. Okay, so I see that the declaration of interest is not yet uploaded. So once again, I click on the upload option and I'm just uploading the declaration of statement here. Okay. Okay, let me do it once again. Okay, so no problem. So please ensure that the appropriate file type is selected for the individual files that you have uploaded using the drop-down menu here. You may also edit the description of the items, but please ensure that you don't use any personal identifiers. So the system will automatically order the files into the order that is designated by the journal. So there's no manual intervention required by the authors at this point. So I'm not able to upload this for some reason. Let me try doing it again. Or maybe. Okay, fine. So now I've just tried to upload another document, but this is just a test scenario. But please make sure that you select the appropriate file types when you're uploading the files into the system. Yeah. So once you are done, once all the files have been uploaded, click on the proceed button here to move to the next step. Okay, so the general information step will have differing requirements depending on your journal. So you may be asked to select the region of origin and section category and classifications. So the classifications are fixed terms that are created for your journal, and they are different from the keywords. So keywords are free text that users can add at the manuscript data step, which we will see in a moment. So now let's go ahead and add some classifications because as you see, they are mandatory for this journal. So I'm just going to click on the add classifications here. Okay, so please identify your manuscript's area of interest and specialization by selecting one or more topics. You can also expand them if you want to see the complete list of topics. So once you have selected your topics here, click on the add button to add them to the right hand side. So this means that these topics have been added to your manuscript. So now finally click on the submit button. So I have selected 3 topics because it is mandatory according to the journal requirement here. So now once you are done with this particular step where you have entered all the required information, please click on the proceed button. Okay, so depending on the journal's requirements, you will see different options on the reviewer preferences screen here. So you may have the option to request an editor to handle your paper, and also to suggest potential reviewers for your submission. So wherever you see the small triangle option, so that is a caution symbol, which means it is mandatory step in the submission process for your particular journal. You can likewise, you can also provide a post reviewers. And now I'm going to show you how to add suggested reviewers for your submission. So here you will have to provide the first name and the last name of the reviewer along with their institution details. And also the email address of the reviewer. So now click on the small floppy disk icon here to save this particular reviewer details to the system. So if you want to add one more reviewer, then just click on the next floppy disk icon with the plus symbol here. So in this journal, it is enough that we had just one reviewer. So if you have any opposed reviewers whom you don't want to review your submission, you can mention that using this particular option here. So please note that these are preferences only. The editor may or may not use the suggestions provided here. So once you have provided all the necessary information in this particular step, click on the proceed button to move to the next step. So the additional information step presents you with a list of questionnaire which the journal uses to collect some useful information from the authors. So please respond to each of these questions as appropriate. And then once you have answered all of these questions, click on the proceed button. So the comments section here gives you the opportunity to enter any additional comments for the journal office. These comments will not appear directly in your submission. So if you have any comments, you can mention them over here. And click on the proceed button. Okay, so this is the manuscript data step, the last step in the submission process. So the system may automatically pull some data from the manuscript file attached by the author to pre-populate some of the fields here. So authors need to verify the data for the pre-populated data, or if they are not being pulled by the manuscript automatically, authors will have to enter them manually here. Okay, and then whichever fields that you see mandatory with the triangle caution symbol, please ensure to update them. Okay. And then scroll down. And at this point, authors can enter any keywords, any free text for their manuscript. So it will automatically, so these fields will be automatically pre-populated. But in case if the system does not pre-populate them automatically from the manuscript file, then authors will have to enter them manually here. Okay. And then in this particular author step, please enter all the authors of the submission, including the name, their current contact email address, and the institution details. So I'm going to go ahead and add one author. So okay. So it is essential to choose one moment. It is essential to choose the institution from the drop-down list here, as you might be eligible for institutional or society discounts that can reduce your article publishing charges for gold open access journals. So you can also refer to a small Pendo guide regarding instructions on how to select the institution details from the drop-down. So if you just start typing in something in this particular box, it will automatically pop up the relevant institutions and you can just select one of them. And then it is compulsory that you select the contributor roles if applicable. So in what way did the author help in into this particular research paper? So then click on the floppy disk icon here to save the details. So here you can see that there is a small triangle caution. So there are some missing details. So click on that in order to fill the missing data. So the contributor roles are missing. So select and click on the save icon here. So now we are done with adding the authors, then move on to the funding information step here. So please add any funding information for your research. If you would like to select something over here, click on add a funding source. Okay. Okay, then click on the floppy disk icon to save the funding information. If there is nothing available at this point, you can just click on the checkbox funding information is not available. Yeah. And then go ahead with building the PDF for your approval. You can also save and submit your manuscript later. So if you would like to do that, click on the save and submit later option here button or option here so that you can come back to completing these steps and submitting the paper later on. So now I wish to go ahead with building the PDF for my submission. So I click on build PDF for my approval. So at this point, the system might take a few moments to build the PDF for your manuscript. So the system might get refreshed every now and then. So before it comes up, you also have something in the ethics and publishing. So please ensure that you read the ethics and publishing required for Elsevier and then provide your consent by ticking on the I accept option here. So I have already prepared a test paper in order to go ahead with the submission. So I click on this and then I click on the view submission option. Once the PDF is built, this will automatically comes up in your screen. So you can just download and have a look of the manuscript if all the files have been properly built into the PDF. So once it's done, click on the approve submission option to approve your submission to the journal. Okay. So at this point, once you approve your submission and the journal office receives your submission, all the co-authors that are entered by the author will automatically receive an email asking them to verify their email address. So the co-authors will then be able to view the manuscript statuses by logging into Editorial Manager. So now I'm going to go back to main menu. So once the paper has been approved by you, the paper will automatically come into the submissions being processed folder here. So from here, you will be able to track the manuscript statuses by logging into Editorial Manager. So now we are moving into the second part of today's webinar. So we are going to be looking at the declaration tool in more detail. So the declaration tool can be accessed through the journal's guide for authors, as well as you can access them from here, or you can also access them from the attach files tab while submitting a paper. So I'm just going to click on the submit new manuscript button here again, and I'm going to go to the attach files tab. So I just randomly pick a article type. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you can see the small box with the declaration of interest. And we have also published a video on how to submit your declaration of interest statement in Editorial Manager. You can watch this. The link to this video will be posted on the chat box for you now. So now click on this declaration of interest to get into the declaration tool homepage. Okay, so here you can see, read the further information about declaring your interest for your manuscript. Okay, so when you are ready, you can start declaring the declaration statement for your manuscript. Please note that for some journals, this particular option, I have nothing to declare button may be present, and should obviously only be used to directly generate a statement when you are confident that you and your co-authors have nothing to declare at this point. For other journals where this particular button is not available, you can indicate that you have nothing to declare in each page as we progress through this particular declaration statement. So when you are ready to begin this process, click on Start My Declaration. So on the first page here, research support for this reported work. So you can declare any support you and any of your co-authors have received from certain type of third parties since the initial conception of this research. Note that you don't need to list any academic institutions or public funding sources from charitable foundations or any government agencies over here. So start filling in the details of this support by typing the organization name. And so once you start typing in, it will automatically show the relevant options for you to select from. So just go ahead and select the one that is appropriate. And then you can also select any relevant financial or non-financial support that you have received from this organization by clicking on the appropriate options here. Then you will also need to add who received this particular support. Okay. So now if you have one more funding source to be added at this point, just click on this button. So by doing so, you can add one more option, or you can add one more organization details, and then you can just go ahead. If you have nothing to declare at this particular point, then you can simply toggle off this button here, and you can just proceed with the next option. Okay. Okay, so this is something I already mentioned. So if you would like to save the declaration for later and come back to it within the next 30 days to continue later, you can use this particular button. So as I mentioned before, at every step, you can go ahead and you can save your information and then you can come back to it later if you would like to fill these details. Okay, so under the relevant support received outside this reported work. So over here, you can disclose if you or any of your co-authors have received any financial interest or personal relationships related to the subject matter, but not directly to the manuscript. So the time frame for the other support is within the last 3 years. So again, fill in the relevant fields here by selecting the organization name, and then who received this particular support, whether the corresponding author or the other co-authors. And if you have nothing to disclose in this particular step, just toggle off this option here and you can proceed with the intellectual property. Okay, so the patents and intellectual property page here allows you to disclose any relevant patents or copyrights licensed to you or any of your co-authors. So once you have filled this, or just press the toggle off button here if you have nothing to declare on this particular page, and then click on the other activities. So other activities is the final page of the declaration tool where you can submit any further information that a reader could perceive to have influenced the work that has not been covered in the previous pages. So if you have anything to enter, you can go ahead and type in your comments in this particular box, or if there is nothing to declare, then just toggle off this button here. And then go ahead with reviewing your declaration statement. So this screen summarizes all the information that you have provided so far. So you may either click on the back button here if there is anything that you want to go back and edit, or just click on the submit and download option here if you are just happy with whatever content has been provided. Okay. So at this point, at this step, the system will offer authors the option to enter your email address to save your declaration statement. So you will receive the same prompt if you wish to save your progress at any time while we are using this tool. If you do this, you will be prompted to enter a one-time password, and you can then download your declaration statement. So this will give authors a window period of 30 days to come back to this tool and download the declaration statement anytime. Alternatively, if you don't wish to enter any details here, you can then select no, I don't want, no thanks, I want to download a declaration statement without saving it. So the declaration tool is now created as a Word document here using the information entered, which can now be uploaded to Editorial Manager as a Word file. So after you have downloaded the file, you can simply upload it when submitting your manuscript at the attach file step, either using the browse option or just the drag and drop option that I explained before. So make sure to select the appropriate file type as declaration of interest in the drop down before you proceed with submitting your paper to the journal. So if you chose to save your declaration, you can always access it from the home screen of this declaration tool for up to 30 days by just clicking on this access with one-time password option that you see here, just below need an existing declaration heading. Okay, so if you want more information about this tool and process, you can watch our video. So the link has already been posted on the chat section. So this is how you use the declaration tool in Editorial Manager. So now I'm going to go back to my presentation and we're going to move to the last part of this webinar. So Anita, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Chandani. Yes, all good.
Is all good? Okay. So once an author finishes writing his paper and submits it to the journal, the system shows the status of the manuscript as manuscript submitted. Okay. Based on the workflow of the journal, the editorial office or the editor performs a technical check on your manuscript. So they will check the manuscript, word count, format, and figure quality, etc. At this point, it can also be written back to the author for making any corrections as needed. Once the paper has passed through the technical check, the next step is assigning it to an editor-in-chief or an associate editor for further handling. Journals usually have multiple associate editors who are experts in a particular niche within the broader subject area. Your manuscript will be handled by the editor who has the highest level of understanding and experience with your paper's research topic. So the status remains with editor until the editor either makes a decision or invites reviewers. So the handling editor has different action choices: make a desk reject, send the paper for revision, or invite reviewers. So the editor conducts an initial screening of your paper and assess it against several criteria such as novelty, priority, and scope. If your paper is a better match for another journal, you may be offered a manuscript transfer. Also, it's possible that your paper does not meet some of the assessment criteria, and then the editor will reject it before going it into the peer review. So if the editor decides that your paper is a good match for their journal, they will identify 2 or 3 independent reviewers, depending on the journal configuration, and send them an invitation to review your manuscript. So when the editor invites reviewers, the status of the manuscript changes to under review. Once the required number of reviews are received and the recommendations are submitted, the status of the manuscript will show as required reviews completed. The handling editor carefully studies the review reports. It can happen that the referee reports are conflicting, in which case the editor needs to find additional reviewers. When this happens, your submission will return to under review status again. So when the editor has received enough high quality feedback from the reviewers, they will begin the decision making process and move the status to decision in process. So the decision may need to be confirmed by multiple editors in some journals, depending on the journal workflow. The manuscript will then move to the editors in chief account for making a final decision. So the editor in chief submits his or her decision. So a revised decision term indicates the editor has requested that you revise the submission. You will find the details of the changes required and the deadline for your revision in the decision letter. Accept or reject. So this this means that the submission process has completed with either an accept or reject decision. In the case of an accept decision, the manuscript will begin its production process. You will receive further information from us. Transfer pending. So this decision term means the editor has rejected your paper and has suggested to transfer it to another journal. The editor has recommended the submission be transferred to another journal via our automatic article transfer service, and you are offered a transfer. So we will await your response before proceeding, and the status will remain as transfer pending. So you have accepted the transfer and the submission is now transferred to another journal. So in that point of time, the status will show as submission transfer. So we have also published a video on the submission status explainer, which I just explained. So that will be posted on the chat section for you now. Okay. So we have now introduced a submission tracker tool to more than 2000 plus journals. So once a journal is using a submission tracker, an email is sent to the corresponding author when the first reviewer is invited. So as you can see from the screenshot here, the email contains a link to the submission tracker landing page where the author can view the status of the review process for their particular submission. Note that the same link will remain active throughout the end-to-end review process. So we expect to have the submission tracker tool available to all the journals in the near future. So the submission tracker landing page for a submission looks as shown in the screenshot here. So from here, you can monitor the complete status of your manuscript. So you can see how many reviews have been completed, how many review invitations have been accepted or declined, and how many review invitations have been sent for the manuscript so far. So now we are moving into the last part of the session. So this is in this section, I would like to offer some quick tidbits on how tables and figures stand out and create an impact in your research paper. So for effective and concise presentation of data in a table, make sure you follow the below options. So combine repetitive tables. If the tables have similar content, they should be organized into one. Divide the data. So if there are large amount of information, the data should be divided into categories for more clarity and better presentation. So it is necessary to clearly demarcate the categories into well-structured columns and subcolumns. The last point, keep only relevant data. The tables should not look cluttered in your manuscript. Ensure there is enough spacing between the tables. So that brings us to the end of our webinar today. So thank you for listening. So after this session, we will send you an email that will contain some helpful links to the webinar recording and some of the short video guides that are related directly to the topic today. So please look out for that email. So please also complete the survey that you see right on your screens if you haven't done so that we are able to receive your comments and feedback about the session and further improvise our webinars for you. So your answers will help us deliver more webinars like this one. So thank you for joining us once again. See you next time. Bye-bye.